The day started like any other in Willow Creek Estates. For a man named Alex, it was a good morning. The sky was blue. The air was fresh. He drank his coffee and looked out the window. His street was quiet and clean. Everything was in its place. This was a peaceful neighborhood. Or so he thought. Alex walked outside to get the mail. It was a normal Tuesday afternoon. He walked down his driveway. Then he stopped. Something was wrong. His mailbox was not standing straight. It was tilted to one side. The post was bent. The red flag was broken. Letters and ads were scattered on the grass. A small package was lying in a puddle of mud. What happened here? Alex said to himself. He thought maybe a delivery truck hit it by mistake. It could happen. The streets were narrow. He felt a little annoyed, but not angry. Accidents happen. He picked up the wet mail. He saved what he could. Then he went to his garage to get his tools. He fixed the mailbox the best he could. He hammered the post straight. It looked okay again. Not perfect, but it would work. Alex forgot about it for a few days. Then, one evening, he came home from work. And there it was again. The mailbox was on the ground. This time it was worse. The metal box was dented. It looked like someone had kicked it. Or hit it. Now Alex was confused. 2 times? This was no accident. He looked up and down the street. His neighbors' mailboxes were all fine. Shiny and straight. Only his was broken. That's when he remembered his security camera. It was a small one by the front door. He didn't think much of it. He just used it to see packages. Maybe it caught something. He opened the app on his phone. He went back to the night before. The video was dark, but the motion sensor light turned on for a moment. He saw a person. The person walked up to his mailbox. It was too dark to see the face, but he could see what the person did. They didn't bump into it. They didn't trip. They raised their arm and swung something down. Bang! The mailbox shook. Then they walked away calmly. Alex's heart beat faster. This was on purpose. Someone was breaking his mailbox. But who? And why? The next day, Alex saw her. Her name was Karen. She was the president of the HOA, the Homeowners Association. She was in charge of the rules. She walked around the neighborhood like she owned it. Alex saw her talking to Mr. Patel, his neighbor. Karen was pointing at Mr. Patel's flower pots. She was saying the pots were the wrong color. They were not approved. Mr. Patel looked sad. He just nodded. Karen was tall and always looked angry. She wore sharp clothes. She carried a notebook to write down violations. Everyone in the neighborhood knew her, and everyone was a little afraid of her. Alex never had a problem with her. Until now. Later that day, Alex was watering his plants. His neighbor, an old man named Ben, came over. Ben lived 2 houses down. He had lived here for 20 years. I saw you fixing your mailbox again, Ben said quietly. Yes, Alex said. Second time this month. Ben looked around to make sure no one was listening. He moved closer. Listen, Ben whispered. It's her. Karen. Alex felt a cold feeling in his stomach. Why? She does this, Ben said. If she doesn't like you. If she thinks you don't follow the rules. She doesn't like your mailbox. She says it's the wrong style. Not the community aesthetic. Alex was shocked. So she breaks it? That's crazy. Ben nodded slowly. She's the HOA president. No one can prove it. She does it at night. No one wants trouble. So people just replace it and stay quiet. Ben patted Alex's shoulder and walked away. Alex stood there for a long time. He looked at his bent mailbox. He thought about Karen's smug face. He thought about the video on his phone. A fire lit inside him. He was not going to be quiet. He was not going to be afraid. He smiled a slow, determined smile. Cliffhanger. Little did Karen know, Alex was not like the others. He was done replacing his mailbox. He was going to replace it with something she would never expect. And he was going to make sure she never touched it again. Alex decided to test a theory. He replaced his mailbox with an identical one. Plain, standard, and he double-checked the HOA rulebook, completely approved. He wanted to see if it would happen again. It took 3 days. On Thursday morning, he found it smashed flat. Not just tipped over. It looked crushed. This time, beside the scattered bills, lay a formal letter in a plastic sleeve. It was from the HOA. The letter fined him $50 for maintaining a damaged and unsightly mailbox, in violation of Section 4, Clause B. It was signed by Karen Ellis, HOA president. Alex stared at the paper, then at the wrecked metal. His hands shook, not from fear, but from a slow, boiling anger. She broke it, and then she fined him for it being broken. The unfairness was like a slap. He went straight to the monthly HOA meeting that evening. He brought the letter and a photo. The community room was full of quiet, tired-looking people. Karen sat at the front table, neat and powerful. When it was his turn, Alex stood up. He kept his voice calm. My mailbox has been vandalized 3 times. I received this fine for the damage. I believe the person damaging it is doing it on purpose. He held up the photo. A few people murmured. Karen adjusted her glasses, a thin smile on her lips. Mr. Wilson, she said, her voice sweet but cold. The HOA is not responsible for criminal acts. You should file a police report. Our fines are for maintenance, not for how the damage occurred. Your mailbox, as shown, violates our aesthetic standards. The fine stands. She moved to the next item on the agenda. Alex was dismissed. He sat down, feeling every eye on him. Some held pity. Others, relief that it wasn't them. The pattern was now clear. A trap. She would break it, find him, and use the rules to block any complaint. He was playing a game where she made all the rules. A week later, the final straw came. He was expecting a small, important package, a gift for his sister's wedding. He watched the delivery truck stop and drive away on his app. He rushed outside. The package was there, but it wasn't on his doorstep. It was in the dirt, next to his 4th broken mailbox. The box was torn open. The gift inside, a delicate porcelain vase, was in 100 pieces. Something in Alex snapped. The frustration, the anger, the sheer pettiness of it all boiled over. This wasn't about a mailbox anymore. This was about a bully who thought she could not be touched. He didn't yell. He didn't call the police yet. He knew what they would say without proof. A neighbor dispute. He stood in his driveway, looking at the shattered porcelain and the bent metal post. The old feeling of helplessness washed over him. Then, it hardened into something else. Determination. A plan began to form in his mind. A simple, beautiful plan. He would not report her. He would not yell. He would not play her game of letters and meetings. He would build a new game, and he would win. He went inside, opened his laptop, and started searching. He wasn't looking for mailboxes. He was looking for solutions. He spent the evening researching. He found 3 things. First, the strongest, most boring mailbox post he could find. Second, a special type of quick-dry concrete, used for setting fence posts. Third, and most important, a set of tiny, high-definition cameras. They were weatherproof, had night vision, and stored footage directly to the cloud. You couldn't smash their memory. He ordered it all. As he clicked confirm purchase, he felt a calm he hadn't felt in weeks. The next day, his neighbor Ben saw him surveying the spot by the road. Another new one, Alex? Ben asked, his voice heavy with sympathy. Alex just smiled. It was a different smile this time. Not angry. Not frustrated. Confident. No, Ben, Alex said, looking at the empty hole where his mailbox used to be. This is the last one. I'm not building a mailbox. I'm building proof. Ben's eyes widened slightly. He gave a slow, understanding nod and walked away without another word. Alex knew the deliveries would arrive in 2 days. He had 2 days to prepare. He would dig the deepest hole, use the strongest concrete, and set the perfect trap. The mailbox would be the bait. The cameras would be the witnesses. Karen had started a war over a piece of metal by the road. But Alex was about to change the battlefield completely. Cliffhanger. The materials were on their way. Alex's plan was set. He would give Karen the perfect, rule-following mailbox she demanded. And he would wait. The question was, would her pride and habit be stronger than her common sense? The stage was being set for a confrontation no one in Willow Creek would ever forget. The boxes arrived in plain, brown packaging. Alex carried them into his garage and closed the door. This project was his secret. He didn't want anyone, not even friendly Ben, to know the details. Surprise was his greatest weapon. He opened the first box. Inside was the mailbox post. It was not wood. It was solid, heavy steel, painted a dull gray. It looked ordinary, even cheap. But when Alex tried to lift it, he grunted. It was incredibly heavy. Perfect. The second box held the concrete mix. The bag said fast set. Industrial strength. Sets in 20 minutes. He read the instructions carefully. He would need to work fast. The last box was the smallest, but most important. The cameras. They were no bigger than matchboxes. They came in a pack of 4. They could connect to his Wi-Fi and send alerts straight to his phone. Their night vision could see in almost total darkness. Alex's plan was simple, but it had to be perfect. Step 1, the hole. That evening, after sunset, Alex started digging. He didn't just dig a small hole. He dug deep and wide. He went down almost 4 feet. The old hole was like a cup. This new one was like a bucket. He mixed the concrete in a wheelbarrow, the powder turning into a thick, gray soup. He poured it into the deep hole, the smell of dust and rain filling the air. Step 2. The anchor. Before the concrete could dry, he lifted the heavy steel post. He lowered it straight into the center of the wet concrete. He used a level to make sure it was perfectly straight. He held it there, his arms aching, for 15 long minutes as the concrete began to harden around it. This post wasn't going anywhere. A truck couldn't knock it over. Step 3. The bait. The next morning, he attached a standard, government-issue mailbox to the top of the steel post. It was the most boring mailbox he could find. Dull metal, no design, no color. It was the mailbox equivalent of plain toast. It followed every single HOA rule to the letter. It was, in Karen's own language, aesthetically appropriate. Step 4. The eyes. This was the clever part. Alex didn't put up big, obvious cameras. That would scare her away. He installed the 4 tiny cameras in hidden places. One inside a fake rock near the flower bed. One under the lip of his roof gutter. One in a small, hollow birdhouse on a tree. And one facing directly down from the eaves above his front door. They all had a clear view of the mailbox. They were invisible unless you knew exactly where to look. He tested each one. On his phone screen, he could see his mailbox from 4 different angles. The picture was clear, even in the daylight. He turned on the motion alerts. A small bell sound would chime on his phone anytime someone came near. The project was complete. Alex stood back and looked at his work. To anyone walking by, it looked pathetic. It was just a plain mailbox on a plain post. It looked weak. It looked like an invitation. That was the whole idea. He wanted Karen to see it and feel tempted. He wanted her to think. He gave up. He put up this cheap, ugly thing. I'll show him. Alex was not an engineer or a detective. He was just a normal guy who was tired of being pushed around. His trap wasn't made of wires and sparks. It was made of psychology and patience. He went inside, poured a glass of water, and looked at his phone screen. For clear live feeds showed the quiet street and his new, boring mailbox. The sun was setting. The concrete was now rock solid. The trap was armed. All he had to do was wait. Cliffhanger. Night fell over Willow Creek Estates. In her house, Karen Ellis looked out her window. She saw the new, plain mailbox standing in the dark. She smiled a thin, cold smile. She did not see the 4 invisible eyes watching her street. She did not hear the soft ding on Alex's phone as her silhouette passed a motion sensor. The game was no longer about mailboxes. It was about proof. And Alex was ready to hit record. The first night, nothing happened. Alex stayed up late, his phone screen glowing in the dark living room. Every time a car passed, the motion alert chimed softly. His heart would jump, but it was just a neighbor coming home late. The mailbox stood untouched, a silent soldier in the dark. By the second night, the tension was a physical thing. It sat on his chest. He tried to watch TV, but his eyes kept drifting to the phone on the coffee table. The 4 live feeds were like a quiet puzzle of his own front yard. He saw a cat chase a leaf. He saw sprinklers turn on. He saw the mail truck's headlights sweep across the grass in the evening. But he did not see Karen. Doubt began to creep in. What if she had given up? What if she saw the new, boring mailbox and was satisfied? What if his whole plan, the concrete, the cameras, the sleepless nights, was for nothing? Then, on the 3rd night, the pattern changed. It was 1:17 a.m. The neighborhood was asleep. The street was a pool of darkness, broken only by the soft orange glow of the streetlights. Alex was almost asleep on the couch, the phone dark in his hand. Ding ding. The sound was sharp in the quiet room. Alex's eyes snapped open. The phone screen was now bright. On the feed from the birdhouse camera, a figure was walking down the sidewalk. Not running. Walking slowly, with purpose. It was a person wearing a dark hoodie, the hood pulled up. The person's head was down. Alex's breath caught in his throat. He couldn't see a face, but he recognized the walk. The stiff, sure steps. It was the same walk he saw at the HOA meetings. The figure stopped directly in front of his house. They stood still for a long moment, just looking at the new mailbox. Alex zoomed in with his finger. The camera was so clear he could see the person's shoulders rise and fall with a deep breath. Then, the figure reached into the hoodie's front pocket. They pulled out an object. It was short, heavy. A hammer. Alex sat straight up, his blood running cold. This was it. He was watching it happen live. He felt a strange mix of terror and triumph. The figure, Karen, stepped off the sidewalk onto his grass. She walked right up to the mailbox. She raised the hammer high above her head, using both hands for a powerful swing. She brought it down with all her strength. There was no sound on the video, but Alex could almost hear it in his mind. He expected a loud bang, the metal crumpling. That is not what happened. Instead, there was a terrible, vibrating clang that echoed in the silent night, a sound of solid metal hitting unbreakable metal. The hammer didn't dent the post. It bounced back violently. The camera from the roof caught it perfectly. Karen's whole body jerked backwards from the shock. The hammer flew from her stinging hands and landed somewhere in the shrubs. She cried out, clutching her right wrist. The hood fell back from her face. It was her. There was no doubt. Her mouth was open in a perfect circle of shock and pain. She stared at the mailbox post as if it were a ghost. It hadn't moved a single centimeter. For 5 full seconds, she just stood there, frozen, cradling her wrist. The ordinary, boring mailbox looked down at her, untouched. Then, Alex made his move. He had prepared for this moment. He tapped an icon on his phone screen. It was connected to a small, wireless speaker he had hidden inside the mailbox itself. A bright, powerful motion sensor floodlight mounted under his eaves snapped on, flooding the front yard with blinding white light. Karen flinched, throwing a hand up over her eyes, caught like a deer. Then, a calm, clear voice came from the speaker inside the mailbox. It was Alex's voice, recorded earlier. It said exactly 3 words. "Smile, you're on camera." The effect was instant. Karen's face went from shock to pure, wide-eyed panic. She looked frantically around, at the birdhouse, at the fake rock, at the gutter, suddenly realizing the eyes were everywhere. She stumbled back, tripping over her own feet and falling onto the grass. She scrambled up, forgetting the hammer, and ran down the street, disappearing into the shadows, holding her injured wrist. The yard was empty again. The floodlight turned off automatically. The silence returned. On his phone, Alex watched the empty scene. His hands were shaking. He took a deep, slow breath. Then, he opened the video storage app. He had it. He had it all. From 4 different angles. The walk, the hammer, the shock, the fall, the panic. Her face, clear as day. He saved the videos in 3 different places: his phone, his computer, and the cloud. The trap had not just been sprung. It had worked perfectly. Cliffhanger. Alex had the proof. The war was over in 1 minute. But what would he do with it? The evidence was a weapon now. Would he call the police right away in the middle of the night? Would he wait for the morning and face her in front of everyone? The power had shifted completely, and Alex did not call the police that night. He did not run outside. He sat in the quiet dark of his living room, the phone heavy in his hand. The urge to confront her immediately was strong, like a fire in his chest. But he forced himself to think. To be smart. Karen used rules as a weapon. Now, he would use proof. He slept little. At 7 a.m., he printed 6 clear, color-still photos from the video. They showed the sequence perfectly. The hammer raised, the moment of impact, her face in the floodlight, pure panic. He put them in a folder. Then, he went to the police station. Not to report a smashed mailbox, but to report a crime. Repeated vandalism, trespassing, and assault on property. He gave the officer the folder and a USB drive with the full videos. The officer, a tired-looking man named Briggs, scanned the photos. A slow whistle escaped his lips. "She's the HOA president? And she did this 3 times. 4, Alex said calmly. This was the 4th. I have the prior police report numbers here. He slid another piece of paper across the counter. He had come prepared. Officer Briggs nodded, a new respect in his eyes. We'll pay her a visit today. Next, Alex went to the HOA management company's office. He asked to speak to the community manager, a man named Mr. Davies, who oversaw several neighborhoods. Alex played the video on his laptop. Mr. Davies watched in stunned silence, his professional smile vanishing. This is beyond a violation, Mr. Davies finally stammered. This is criminal behavior by a board member. I want an emergency meeting of the full HOA board tonight, Alex said. His voice was quiet but firm. And I will be presenting this evidence. Mr. Davies agreed immediately. The news spread through Willow Creek Estates like electricity. By evening, the community clubhouse was packed. People stood at the back. Everyone was whispering. Karen sat at the front table as usual, her right wrist wrapped in a beige support bandage. She avoided looking at anyone. Mr. Davies called the meeting to order. "Before we begin," he said, his voice tense, "a resident has requested to present a matter of urgent importance." Alex walked to the front. He felt every eye on him. He connected his laptop to the projector. He did not look at Karen. "For months," he began, his voice clear in the silent room, "my property has been vandalized. I was fined for the damage. I was told it was my responsibility." He clicked a button. The huge screen on the wall lit up with a night vision video. There was Karen in her hoodie. The hammer. The brutal swing. The shocking clang that everyone could almost hear. Her stumble. The floodlight. Her terrified face as the voice said, "Smile, you're on camera." Gasps filled the room. Someone dropped a set of keys. A few people turned to stare at Karen, who had gone bone white, shrinking in her chair. Alex showed two more angles. The proof was undeniable, brutal, and humiliating. He turned to face the room. "The police report was filed this morning, but I wanted you all to see it. This is who has been enforcing our rules. This is who has been judging your flower pots and your paint colors." The room erupted, not in yelling, but in a wave of released tension. Neighbors started talking over each other. "She fined me for a garden hose. She threatened me over my trash cans. I knew it. My porch light was broken last year." Karen stood up, her chair scraping loudly. "This is a setup. He provoked me." Her voice was shrill, stripped of all its usual authority. "How?" Mr. Davies asked coldly, holding up one of the printed photos. "By installing a fully HOA-compliant mailbox? The report from the police is here, Karen. They have the hammer, with your fingerprints on it, from his shrubs." The fight drained from her. She sat back down, covering her face with her good hand. The board voted unanimously to remove her as president immediately. Mr. Davies announced the HOA would drop all fines against Alex and pay to repair his previous mailboxes. They would also be cooperating with the police. Alex didn't smile. He didn't cheer. He just felt a deep, quiet wave of relief. The weight was gone. As the meeting broke up, people came to him. They patted his shoulder. They thanked him. Old Mr. Patel gave him a small, firm nod, his eyes bright. Karen hurried out a side door, alone, into the night. No one followed her. Cliffhanger. The battle was won. Karen was gone. The neighborhood was free. But as Alex drove home, a new thought struck him. His mailbox stood as a strange monument in the dark. It was more than a mailbox now. It was a symbol. What would happen to it? And what would happen to the quiet, careful life he had in this neighborhood now that he was the man who brought down the HOA queen? The war was over, but a new story was just beginning. The official letter arrived a week later. It was from the district attorney's office. Karen was charged with criminal mischief and trespassing. She accepted a plea deal, probation, community service, and full restitution to Alex. She also had to formally resign from all HOA positions. The news was a quiet, satisfying end to the public drama. But in Willow Creek Estates, the change was louder. Alex's plain, gray mailbox became a local landmark. Neighbors walking their dogs would give it a friendly pat. Parents pointed it out to their kids as they passed. "See that? That's the mailbox that didn't move." It wasn't pretty, but it stood perfectly straight, a silent testament in the sun. Alex expected things to go back to normal. But normal had been redefined. People started waving at him. Not the old, careful nod of before. These were real smiles. Mr. Patel left a basket of homegrown tomatoes on his porch with a note, "For the man with the strong post." Ben came over with 2 cold drinks and simply said, "I knew you'd do it." One Saturday morning, Alex saw a new sight. Mrs. Henderson from 3 houses down was painting her front door. It was a bright, cheerful sunflower yellow. The old rule said doors could only be eggshell, slate, or moss. Mrs. Henderson saw Alex looking and gave a defiant, happy wave. He waved back. The unspoken rule of fear was broken. The new HOA board, led by a soft-spoken librarian named Maria, held their first meeting. The tone was different. They discussed planting community flowers, not policing grass length. They voted to simplify the rulebook, removing dozens of petty, confusing clauses. The word aesthetic was used less. The word community was used more. Alex was invited to join the board. He politely declined. He had fought for peace, not power. but he promised to attend the meetings, to be a quiet voice for common sense. The greatest change, however, was inside Alex himself. He realized his victory wasn't really about the mailbox, or even about beating Karen. It was about the moment he chose to stop reacting and start building. He didn't fight anger with anger. He fought pettiness with patience, and lies with perfect, undeniable proof. He had built something she could not break, the truth. One evening, as the sun set, Alex stood at his window. He watched the orange light glow against the steel-gray post of his mailbox. He thought about the shattered porcelain vase, the angry meetings, the late nights staring at his phone. It felt far away now. He walked outside. He ran his hand over the cool, solid metal of the post. Then, from his pocket, he pulled out a small, magnetic sticker. It was a simple, smiling emoji. Smiling face with smiling eyes. He pressed it onto the side of the mailbox, right at eye level. It was a silly, small thing, but it felt right. It was no longer a trap or a symbol of war. It was just his mailbox, and he was happy with it. The next day, the children on the street noticed the smiley face first. They giggled and pointed. Soon, other small, gentle touches appeared. Someone tied a blue ribbon around the post. Someone else left a tiny pot of marigolds at its base. The plain mailbox was being adopted by the neighborhood it had helped free. Alex's story didn't end with a grand celebration. It ended with a quiet morning, a cup of coffee, and the deep knowledge that his home was truly his own again. The air felt lighter. The street felt friendlier. The peace was no longer fragile. It was cemented in place, as strong as the concrete in the ground. Final OUTRO on-screen text. Sometimes, standing up to a bully doesn't require a louder voice. It just requires a stronger foundation. And sometimes, the simplest solution, a plain mailbox, a hidden camera, a little patience, is the most powerful one.